Welcome to the Elements of Success podcast with Johnny Dawson. This is the show that will inspire you to uncover your formula for success so you take charge of your story, overcome life's obstacles, and find fulfillment in all branches of life. With Johnny as your guide, you will break down the science of success and experiment with how you can combine key elements to uncover discipline you need to accelerate your journey towards prosperity. Now, on to today's episode.
Welcome to Elements of Success podcast, where we'll explore traits that have helped others achieve success. Our hope is to inspire you to discover your own element of success. Today, we're joined by my co-host, Eric Johnson. Hey, Eric, how we doing today, man?
I'm doing fantastic, Johnny. It's so good to be back with you. I'm excited today. I mean, you've always got something new for me. All these elements that you bring to the forefront and bring to the audience, they've been fantastic. And so I'm looking forward to what you got today.
I appreciate that. And I do have some news for you. Are you ready?
Right. Yes.
I think it's good for celebration, but I've just received an email a couple days ago that we currently have over 4,000 downloads of our podcast.
Man, that is fantastic. Congratulations, dude. That's great.
Isn't that crazy? Yeah. So to the listener, before we even start today, I just want to give you a quick thank you to say it's awesome. I was blown away. I never really expected that. And truly, we appreciate you tuning into our show and just listen to the elements that we think could help someone achieve their success. And maybe it's not success you're really after. Maybe it's just mindset and the need to feel inspired. And we truly thank you and hope that you continue to stay tuned in with us as we go down this journey. But Eric, I was so excited to see that and see those stats.
Yeah,
so that's awesome.
That is fantastic.
Well, today's show, I am actually going to start with a story.
Story time with Johnny. All
yeah, right. we could probably change the show to that name.
There you go.
The story's not really a story, but it's more of an argument. And I think that if you have been on anywhere near social media, you could probably find a argument within any comment section of any local news agency. From here to New Zealand, to Australia, to China, to Wyoming, to Texas, it is running rampant of just everyone wanting to argue lately. So I figured, let's talk a little bit about that and what element could you start to develop to help you be a better communicator? Because being a better communicator is a part of an element of success. And I saw this story on Facebook, of all places, and I thought, man, that's a really good analogy and a good story, so I wanted to use it today. And the argument is actually not between people, it's between a donkey and a tiger.
All right.
So that's where we're going to start with this. And let's start with a donkey walks up to the tiger and he tells him, "Hey, tiger, the grass is blue." And the tiger replies, "No, the grass is green." That discussion becomes pretty heated, and the two decided to even submit the issue to arbitration. So they decided, you know what? If we can't agree to disagree, we're just going to go have someone else verify what color the grass is. And so they approached the lion. And as they approached the lion, the donkey started screaming on his way up there, Your Highness, isn't it true that the grass is blue?" The lion replied, "If you believe it is true, then the grass is blue." Donkey rushed forward and continued, "The tiger disagrees with me, contradicts me. He annoys me. Please, just punish him." The lion then declared, "The tiger will be punished for 3 days of silence." The donkey jumped with joy. He just proved his point. He went on his way, content and repeating, "The grass is blue, the grass is blue," all the way home. "Hey, everyone, the grass is blue." The tiger stayed back and asked the lion, "Your Majesty, why have you punished me? After all, the grass is green." The lion replied, "You've known and seen the grass is green, and I know the grass is green." The tiger then said, "So why would you punish me?" The lion replied that it has nothing to do with the question whether the grass is blue or green, but the punishment is because it is degrading for a brave, intelligent creature like yourself to waste time arguing with an ass and then come and bother me with a question that you already know the truth to.
That's fantastic.
what
I've never heard that before.
Story, you've never heard that?
No, I've never heard that before.
It points out a very good illustration, right? Sometimes the biggest waste of time is arguing with someone who is only trying to prove a point because it fits their own narrative, or maybe they really just don't care about the truth, but rather they care about proving you wrong no matter what the cost is, right?
Yeah.
And I think we see those people on a daily basis in the world of social media because it's very easy to disagree with someone when you don't have the raw emotion standing in front of you of that disagreement. It is very quick to type up a sentence or two and just hit send and not even care what that's doing to the other person on the other side of that computer, right?
Oh, yeah. Keyboard warrior.
Exactly. And there's people who, unfortunately, it doesn't matter how much evidence that you present to them or how much of confidence that you have in your understanding, they just refuse to understand. And it has nothing to do with your ability to understand. They just don't care, that they don't want to see what you even have to say because it doesn't fit the mindset they have towards a particular problem. Others are sometimes blinded by ego. They're blinded by hatred, resentment. And the only thing that they really want is to be right, even if they're not right. So today's element of success is really one thing that I feel this story is missing between the tiger and the donkey. Eric, any idea what that might be?
First thing that comes to mind is common sense.
Common sense, yeah.
You know, I don't know. I mean, I'm interested. What is it?
Well, speaking of common sense, I use that word a lot with our 9-year-old. I'm like, hey, man, listen, do you think that was using common sense? He's like, what do you mean? Then I have to explain it. But the word that I'm thinking of is empathy.
Oh, that's good. Yeah, that's really good.
Empathy is defined as the ability to understand and share the feelings of another, right? And I think you and I both would agree that the story I just played out between the tiger, the donkey, and the lion is being played out every single day in a large part of our society and our lives. Every day. We have to realize that tensions have been running high for a very long time. I mean, to go through what we all are going through with this pandemic, are we quarantined? Are we not quarantined? Is it okay to come out? Is it now we got to go back in? That will literally drive people to insanity if it were to continue for a very long period of time. Now, what happens is fear and anxiety will boil over, and that's what creates tension. Our leaders even have a high level of tension, right? You can see it on a massive scale. And when you see that the leaders of a nation are stressed out and have tension, that has ripple effects across the entire nation, and people don't understand that. But at the end of the day, I think the people among us have lost the sight of empathy. Fear sometimes drives a fight or flight response that will lead us to being irrational and making decisions that maybe are out of character. And again, take the story that we just looked at. The tiger could have questioned, and this is the point I want to make, and this is going into our element of success. So let's change the story a little bit. The tiger could have questioned, why does the donkey believe the grass is blue? Right? The question the tiger could ask is, hey, donkey, I understand that you're trying to tell me the grass is blue. Why did you get to that conclusion? How did you get to that conclusion? And the donkey could have very well said, well, when I'm looking at it, it looks blue to me. Now, if the donkey was colorblind and maybe shades of green were actually a shade of blue, is the donkey wrong?
Yeah, as a colorblind guy, I'm like, no, I kind of understand the donkey a little bit more. I still don't agree with him, but yeah, I'm partially colorblind myself, and it's it is difficult to tell the difference between shades. And I love the fact that you brought that up, because the tiger didn't take the time to ask any follow-up questions. It was just, he's making his point as well, although not as loud or as, I don't know the word I'm looking for there, but aggressive or, kind of like a jackass, right? He didn't make it that way, but he was standing his ground. No, it's green, without asking any other questions. So that's a great point.
Right. So think about if the tiger would have asked these probing questions, we'll call them, and said, hey, I understand that you're disagreeing with me, but I need to figure out why you're disagreeing with me. Mm-hmm. What if the tiger would have said, hey, let's take a walk over here, and I found this green shovel. What color do you see? And the donkey's like, blue. Wouldn't that have been like, okay, so anything that you see is actually green, you're seeing it as a shade of blue, which now makes sense on why you think everything that is green is a little shade of blue.
Yeah.
No one is doing that right now. No one tries to understand the perspective of someone else, and that is the core definition of empathy, which is the ability to understand and share the feelings of another. Mm-hmm. So this is, unfortunately, what happened instead. Instead, they went down a road of destruction. They involved others, and now they will always have a hatred towards each other rather than an understanding of why they had a difference.
Yeah, and so here's a couple things that I've been thinking about as you're talking. I am on a few different apps in social media, and it's not that I'm challenging what you just said, but there are times when I see a discourse, somebody asking a follow-up question, somebody asking somebody to clarify their point of view or to ask them to back it up, right? Back up their claim, quote unquote. If the tiger had asked, the donkey why, kind of trying to back up their claim. A couple things happen. Number one, it's a much quieter voice, right? The people that get the attention in social media and throughout our country today, whether they're on the far left, whether they're on the far right, it doesn't matter where they're at. The people that get the most attention are the ones that are screaming the loudest. And it really struck me when you said that, the donkey, on approaching the king or the lion, started screaming at that point. Right. Well, all eyes are on the donkey. Everybody's looking at the donkey at that point. And they see the tiger, but the tiger's not saying anything, right? The tiger's remaining quiet. And I think that people that are contemplative, people that try to show empathy, a lot of times they do it in such a way that's it's quieter. They're not out there standing on a soapbox. They're just thinking, and then they're talking quietly to ask maybe some of those follow-up questions, and they get lost in the shuffle. And it's incredibly unfortunate and very frustrating, because there are a lot of really smart people out there that are wise and intelligent and will take the time to learn about other people. But I would say 9 times out of 10, the people that are acting like the ass, they just want to shout from the rooftops, and they don't want to engage in that discourse.
Right.
That makes it tough. So what do we do about that?
I think it has to be an element within all of us, unfortunately. And sometimes that'll never happen because you can't do it overnight. But it has to start from leadership perspective. It has to be a ripple effect through the nation of showing empathy towards people that are different than you are, maybe, or showing empathy towards someone that maybe was just displaced from a war-torn country and has 0 places to go, and we're the only hope. Showing empathy towards that idea, right? Showing empathy towards people that may have a medical condition and they're just not sure of things that are happening right now, and they don't know the answers, and those are the things where there's a lack of empathy. And I feel like it only takes one movement to create change, and you have to create a change of empathy, or else you're leading to a place of destruction. Because at the end of the day, if you're not willing to understand and share the feelings of another, of an entire body of people, what does that conclude to? And what is the purpose of just disagreeing with every single conflict that is different than your own opinion? having conflicts of difference never solve anything. They just create more conflicts. So when you practice empathy, you change the lens in which you view others. Mm-hmm. You change the lens in which you also decide to respond.
Absolutely.
Nothing about today's situation is easy. Nothing. I mean, we all, as a body and a nation, are all going through a very stressful tension time. We just spent an entire year worrying about our elderly people. My mom, right? My mom has COPD and emphysema, is on oxygen. So if she were to get COVID, I mean, that's pretty much a checkout sentence, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So I just spent the entire year worrying about her. All my focus was on her. Oh my gosh, she can't go anywhere. We can't go anywhere. We can't do anything about this. If she gets COVID, you know, that my mom's young, so it could be the end of her days. Mm-hmm. And now this year, we have 4 young boys. And the perspective has completely changed to, oh my gosh, should I send them to school? Should I homeschool them? At what point are they allowed to have vaccines? Can they get vaccines? What's the side effects? So the questions just circle around. So everyone in this country that's kind of in that middle road of, you worried about your parents for a year, now you got to worry about your children. The tensions and the stress are high. Mm-hmm. And if you can't change your lens of how you see through that, and just to show ounce of empathy towards everyone, what are we doing?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And it reminds me of a story that I heard a long time ago as part of a speech from a very prominent doctor in our area, and he called it "baby in the back seat." And it truly involved him. He was behind a car at a stoplight. They were in a turn lane. And there was a couple cars in front of the car in front of him, so he was probably 4th in line. Light turned green. The first 2 cars went. The car in front of him didn't. Right? Just didn't even move. Mm-hmm. And she was messing with something in the back seat. She was turned around, and he honked a couple times. He's like, "Come on, are you serious? I mean, the light's green. You know, how many times have we been in that situation?
Right.
You know, move it. Let's go." And so he jumped out of the car just frustrated, right? And he's going to basically go up, "Hey, the light was green. What are you doing?" kind of thing, and went up to her window, knocked on it, and she turned to him, at the driver's window, and she had tears streaming down her face, and she rolled down the window and said, "My baby's not breathing." And he looked in the back seat, and there was a baby in the car seat that was choking or something, just wasn't breathing. Immediately got the baby out. They called 911, got the police there. The baby ended up being fine, but he had no idea what she was doing, why she was doing it. And how many times have we been in traffic where, or we've been on the freeway where somebody doesn't like how we're driving, we're going too slow for them, they whip around us, flip us the bird, and take off.
Right.
They have no idea. You, Johnny, could be sitting in a stoplight, thinking about your mom, thinking about your kids. Light turns green. You're not paying attention. Somebody lays on their horn. You look up, oh, it's green, and you go. And now that person behind you is just angry because you were distracted. You were probably playing a game on your phone or whatever, but they have no idea what's actually going on in your mind.
Right.
And I believe, and I think you would agree, that empathy is a muscle that you have to exercise. You have to practice. You have to really think about it. Taking that 5 seconds, just 5 seconds to think, what situation are they in? Hey, maybe they are playing Angry Birds on their phone. Who knows? But maybe they're not. Maybe there's something else going on in their life that's causing them to be distracted, and they just need a little empathy. They just need a little care and concern for their situation and some patience.
I could not agree more with that. And it's hard to get that opinion, it's really hard to develop that muscle through social media. It's really hard.
Yeah.
Right. So if you're listening to this, what I would like to challenge you, and this is a challenge, I want you to show empathy towards someone else's opinion and or comment. And what you may find is by doing that, you're releasing yourself from your own stress. Mm-hmm. And you're creating a wider depth of understanding than what you may realize. And how you can do that is maybe you see a comment, outlandish comment. Maybe you know the person, maybe you don't. Here's the challenge. And they say something that's a different opinion of yours. And maybe you should just reach out and say, hey, do this through Messenger. You don't got to do it in the comment section where a bunch of people join in. But just message that person on the side and say, hey, I saw your comment on this or your post. Would you mind just explaining how you got to that conclusion? I just want a better understanding of your opinion. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And if more people would do that, I think we would start to feel more empathetic, more understanding, and be able to share in the feelings of what other people are feeling. Don't act like the donkey and the tiger, to Eric's point of just shouting from the rooftop that you're right and everyone else is wrong. Get to the root of why someone feels different than you do and see how you can come to a conclusion to maybe understand that person's feelings and why they apply that to their life or have that opinion. Eric, final thoughts?
I would just say this, is that I agree 100% with what you just said, and I think it behooves us to look through a different lens in a lot of cases. When you have somebody who is acting like that ass and they're just shouting from their soapbox, if you do exactly what you just said, Johnny, and engage them privately and just say, hey, I'm curious about your opinion. I'm curious where you got this from. There may be a really, really good reason why they think that way. Just like you said, maybe there's some color blindness or whatever for the donkey situation. Or maybe they just are an ass. Right. And then you know that that's somebody that you just avoid engaging with in the future because all they want to do is shout, all they want to do is yell, all they want to do is try to say that they're right. And boy, doesn't that save us a lot of stress and concern? Right. Because, and let's face it, there's even some family members that I've had to do that with. Not that I unfriend them or any of that kind of stuff. I don't go to that extreme. I still want to see them. I still want to stay connected with them. But when it comes to politics, I avoid conversations with them. When it comes to, certain things, mask, not mask, vaccine, not vaccine, anything, religion, I just know I'm not going to engage them because they're not interested in a conversation. They're just interested in being right. And so, but wouldn't it be nice to be able to know who we can engage and have deeper conversations with? And that all starts exactly what you say, what you're saying with empathy. If we do that, I think we'll make stronger relationships out of it and be able to avoid the stressful relationships that have been bothering us. And we just know, okay, that's their opinion, but that's the way they want to handle it. I just don't want to engage that. We just avoid a lot of drama by implementing empathy and knowing who we should be growing deeper with.
And I love those points, and I completely agree. And the one thing that I'll add to that is you asked earlier, like how could we make change, right? How could this what change could be made? So let's just paint this final scenario here. You do have a jackass on, your local news station. You see the same person always in there spatting off nonsense and just shouting from the rooftops. Do you think more people argue with that person or try to understand that person's opinion on a daily basis? Which one would you say is more?
Oh, argue.
Okay. Definitely argue. Let's say I see that and I randomly message a person and I send them a little heartfelt message saying, hey, I don't agree with what you're saying, but let me just ask you, could you help me better understand your opinion? How many of those messages has that person probably received?
Very few.
I would say zero.
Yeah.
I think the answer would be zero. So let's say I do that one time and that person's like, wait a minute, this is the first time anyone's really ever asked me outside of yelling at me in the comment section what I think of this. And do you think that might create a little bit of a dialogue of showing them empathy in which they may show other people empathy in the future?
Yeah, ripple effect for sure. Absolutely.
That's the chain of how you can make change when it comes to being empathetic.
Fantastic. Well, I think you drove the point home for sure. Johnny, if somebody wants to reach out and say, hey, I'd like to talk to you more about this, maybe they could use a little bit of a personal trainer for developing that empathy muscle. How can they reach you?
Yeah, I would just say, send me an invite to follow on Instagram or Facebook. Instagram's just my name, Johnny W. Dawson, all one. Love to connect with you. Always feel free to send me a message. We also have Elements of Success Facebook page and Instagram page. Any of those avenues, just Google my social media accounts and link up with me, and I would be happy. Anyone that is going through things or just needs a kind of a voice of reason and chat, I would love to be that voice for you, and we could do that right in the DMs as well. So I appreciate everyone that's listened. Still blown away at 4,000 downloads, so thank you.
That's awesome. And I'm just going to echo that. Thank you so much for tuning in and listening to the Elements of Success podcast with Johnny Dawson. If you have not subscribed to the podcast yet, please click the subscribe now button below. This way, when Johnny comes out with a new podcast, it'll show up directly on your listening device. This makes it much easier to share these podcasts with your friends and family. Again, thanks for listening today. For everyone at the Elements of Success, this is Eric just reminding you, hey, you gotta flex that empathy muscle. You gotta get to the gym. Start working that thing out. It'll really improve your life in more ways than one. Again, thanks for joining us. We'll talk to you soon.
Thank you for listening to the Elements of Success podcast. If you have not subscribed to the podcast, please click the subscribe button below. If you know anyone who would benefit from listening to this podcast, click the share button.